The most brilliant bits and pieces don't just come out. It takes time and pass after pass after pass. The footage sort of tells you, in a way, how to put it together.
Or what it's capable of withstanding.
You know, it'll take AI a long time to be able to be programmed to find those like amazing little happy finds. So I think the last part of the negotiation was like, could you guys just come up like $100 a week just to make us feel like we're getting, and they were like, no. And I said, okay, I'll see you Monday. So.
Hey everyone, we are back with Sean Albertson because the first time there just wasn't enough time to get through all of the other stuff. So welcome back, Sean.
Thank you.
And Josh Apter and Jason Banky from Manhattan Edit Workshop. Why don't you just do a little introduction to Manhattan Edit Workshop and then we'll continue the conversation.
Jason, go for it.
Well, we Josh and I are from Manhattan at a workshop. We teach Avid, Resolve, all the Adobe suite, and we do some production classes. And we've been around for going over 20 years now. And our signature class is our 6-week intensive, where you get to experience both learning how to touch the buttons and what they do, and the reason you do that. And we have artists in residence each thing. Sean has been an artist in residence, and basically you can go check out our stuff at MEWShop.com, and we're running classes every week.
There's a bunch of them in here today. If you hear a lot of thumping around, it's because we've got a full house here. So
Nice.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's just like I try to get a microphone that ignores a lot of, like, 'cause I have a big fan in here so that they don't want to hear me. So hopefully the sound is okay. That no one's complained so far.
All right. So shall we start? Josh, you came right out of the gate talking about Chippendales.
No. I was just like, let's go back into the past. But no, Jason, you were going to ask about the Blumhouse work, right?
Yeah, because we didn't get to talk about any of that, and I know you've done a few things for them. Imaginary is the latest that you did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just I know from other things that I've seen that you've talked about, that you kind of have a relationship with those guys, and it'd be nice to hear like what that's like and how that happened.
Sure. So I was I've now I'm sure last time I talked about Jeff Wadlow. I've done 6 projects with a writer director named Jeff Wadlow now. The first one was a Netflix feature called True Memoirs of an International Assassin. It was an action comedy, and we he hired, he interviewed me on a recommendation and hired me, and we had a great time, just a great working relationship. He then called me and said, "Hey, listen, I'm doing a Blumhouse movie. It's really low budget. I think it was a $4 million budget. They can't afford you. I would love to work with you again. Totally understand if you don't want to do it. In fact, they don't want you to do it because they have an in-house editor that they pay all the time anyway, and so I totally get it. My answer was like, I want to work with you again. Like we had a really good time. Like I really enjoyed working with this guy. I said, so let me try to make it work. And I my agent and I started negotiating. They offered me at the time a third of what my rate was, and we went back at like my rate, and they offered me that same number, and we went back at a couple $1,000s a week less, and they came back at the same number. And ultimately they were saying what Jeff had said, like, we don't want Sean to do it. We have somebody we're already paying. So ultimately, so I think the last part of the negotiation was like, could you guys just come up like $200 a week, $100 a week, just to make us feel like we're getting, and they were like, no. And I said, okay, I'll see you Monday. so I did it. And it was a movie called, what was that movie called, guys? it's the one I don't have a poster for here. It was called Truth or Dare.
Hmm.
It ended up being called Blumhouse's Truth or Dare because there was a Madonna movie.
Madonna. Yes, I thought that was the movie that you worked on.
Nope, it was not.
Different.
And so we had to change the name to Blumhouse's Truth or Dare. But so, my experience after getting over the fact that I was like doing this for nothing, which took me a couple of days once I started, and then just deciding I'm in it, like this is what I'm doing. I made a decision to do this. I got to put everything I got into it. And it ended up being an amazing experience, and I'm so grateful that I did it, even though they weren't paying shit, because for two reasons. One is it was spectacular. I had worked with Jeff, who I think the first thing we did was like a $65 million budget, and he did an amazing job with that movie. But to see what he was able to accomplish on $4 million, it did not feel like a $4 million movie. With him, it always feels bigger, much more scope than you can imagine on 4 million. Great cast. It was a lot of fun, that movie, and a lot of fun to work on. And in the process, I fell in love with the current administration of Blumhouse post-production people. There were Tim Albertson, who was that brilliant sort of in-house Blumhouse editor, was there cutting whatever he was cutting, and all the assistants. They have this kind of system of like, they hire interns and then they move them up to PA and then second assistant editor and their in-house editorial staff, and just spectacular people. And I, to this day, I'm on a text chain with like that group of 10, 12 people that continues to grow. So I made a lot of really good friends and creative confidants in that experience, because Wadlow shoots a ton of footage, and I may have talked about this last time, but mathematically I can't keep up to camera if I'm watching every inch of everything that is shot, right? So I'm behind on editor's cut. Super low budget movie. We're not hiring another editor to help. So I went out to the bullpen and I was like, anybody want to cut some scenes? Like, just throw some stuff together, and just so I have something to start with. And like all these like assistant editors who were really kind of talented editors, and people just started throwing in, and it became this amazing like collaborative situation. So that was my first experience on a Blumhouse project. Everybody loved the movie. It did really well, and so they decided to continue to work with Wadlow, and I think our next thing we did was the ill-fated Fantasy Island over at Blumhouse. It had its problems, and I don't think did very well. We happened to open like just as COVID was shutting the world down, so I'm sure that has something to do with our box office performance. But nobody seems to care why a movie does well or not. It just is what it is, and so it's a flop. But again, a great experience. Well, first of all, I got to go to Fiji for 2 months, and really just lived and worked on a resort on the beach.
Did they want you there because you were cutting while they were shooting? That's
Yeah, so Jeff, since COVID, things have changed a bit, but that was just before COVID. And so Jeff, sending an editor on location is not something that Blumhouse tends to do, particularly on their lower budget films. And I think Fantasy Island was only like 8 million. So they were like, no, but Jeff was like, yeah, Sean, I want Sean there. Like, Sean's got to be with me on location. And so I went to Fiji. I put together a crew of Australians and Kiwis, and and that was a blast and very hard work. That movie was particularly difficult.
Hmm.
And you know, and then I think that was, and then Imaginary was next on the Blumhouse menu, and for me, Imaginary is the best. Also, did not do well. And I truly believe, sort of unlike you know, Fantasy Island's not a great movie in my opinion. Some people like it, whatever. Um, um, but through no fault of the movie, in my opinion, Imaginary did not do well in the box office. They stuck us. They stuck our opening the week after Dune 2 and the week of Kung Fu Panda 4 or whatever it was. And so there was that, it sucked all the air out. There was no money to be had between those two movies. And but I will say, in my opinion, Imaginary for me is the best movie that Jeff has done. It's the best written and the best directed. And I'm super proud of what we accomplished on that movie. Particularly for me, I think it was the first time I've worked with an inanimate object as a character, and so editorially, it was just a very interesting, just an interesting case study in you know, in like, it's one thing to be working with a live actor and to be looking, you know, going and searching for the right look or the right response to something, but like it really it really taught me again, like sometimes just a neutral look is all you need. It's just about when you cut to that person and how long you're hanging on them. And so that was that was sort of a treat I got to work with on Imaginary.
Is it you guys developed a rhythm or something? We worked together like 4 times or something, right? Like, what's it like when you've had a relationship with a director for that long? I mean,
I think it's great. Like I mean, to me, I think that's always the dream of an editor, is like you get that relationship or those couple of relationships. You know, we talked
mhm.
about Mike Nichols and Sam Osteen. So for me, it was always sort of the dream to have a director that likes to work with me and that I like to work with, um, and so yeah, it's changed over time, which has been amazing too. Like when we first worked together, when I first interviewed with Jeff, um, as is the case with most directors I interview with, they all tell me like, well, I'm an editor also, and so I like to get in, you know, um, and I'm and only once in my career has a director actually ever sat down at the machine.
Why do you
And
think they say that? So like they
I
get it.
think
It's like, don't try to
I
be the auto mechanic trying to cheat them out of
yeah,
the.
I think it's fear. It's fear that you're going to take control of their, you know, of their artistic vision,
Mhm.
right? And so over time, you know, and I know I know that Jeff had an experience like that before we worked together, where, you know, and there are editors who will come in and, you know, certainly, you know, I'm super opinionated and I'll battle for what I believe, but you have to know that it's not yours. It's not your final say, and you know, and so for me, um, it's really important that I know when to stop arguing. I know when to say, okay, let's do your thing, and I'm going to do the best job I can at creating the vision that you're trying to get from me, and let's see if I can lift it up even further, and something else comes from it. And so, you know, it took some time. You know, Jeff was like on that first movie, like Jeff was like in the editing room all the time, was coming in to see things all the time while he was shooting. And and that over the years has turned into a lot of Jeff being like, all right, go do your thing. Like, you know,
Hmm.
I know you're going to kill it, and then we'll figure it out from there. And so Jeff spends more time in his office these days. But then, I'll be struggling with something, and I'll call him in, and I'll be like, hey, this one moment I'm trying, and he's such a great editing director. He's such a good editor, and he knows, and he just has that mind. He can like reshape, or and he'll just say like, well, why don't you just cut to that? And I'll be like, oh shit, like what, I should have thought of that. I'm the editor.
But if it's you're banging your head against it for a week, sometimes you can't see the thing that's right in front of you, and
No, and
it's
that's
nice to
just
have
my,
you.
yeah, and that's just my ego. Like my ego thinks I'm the editor that they're paying. I should have all the answers, but that's bullshit. And I get, I've learned to get my answers anywhere I can get them. It's not just Jeff. It's like my crew, or I'll often just call the crew in and be like, can you guys look at this? Tell me what you think. And as I think I
Mhm.
told you guys last time, if I'm battling with a sequence, and I just can't get through it, I can't wrap my head around it, I just ask somebody to put it together. So, because then I can look at it, I can sort of take a God's eye view of it, and say, oh yeah, that works, or that doesn't work, and I know how to fix that.
Yeah, that's I've seen another like you screen it for some people and suddenly you become like this invisible audience member. And it's
Yeah.
like the stuff that you couldn't perceive at all. It's just like just because it's being shown publicly, you're just like, oh geez, like things become so obvious to you when you show it to other people. I don't know what the weird it's like
It's
a
like
phenomenon, something occurs, right? It's like
you see it through other people's eyes suddenly,
mhm,
and you get like that perspective, like you're saying, like suddenly you're like, I know that Walter Murch used to, or maybe he still does, but used to put
mhm.
those tiny
Action
little head
figures.
cutouts in front of his screen to like give him the sense that there's like an audience, a tiny little
Hmm.
audience, and he's looking at a big screen. And I tried that once and it didn't work for me. But sitting with an audience, you really start to go like, wow, that doesn't work at all. Like
Hmm.
that thing I thought worked is
Or
like,
something works that you didn't even know
yeah,
was working because you just are numb to it. But I also find that like if I'm there asking questions or I have a questionnaire for people, by the time it's over, I'm just I'm basically just confirming what I already know because you know it. Like by the time it's over, you're just like, all right, I got this, and you're
yeah,
handing out, you're getting feedback from people, but you're just like, who's agreeing with me because I
right,
really know,
yeah, yeah,
Sean,
yeah.
bizarre.
because you're a musician, I have going through my head the way that you just described is the way that um, Steely Dan used to produce their music.
That's
Like they
right. I
used to
remember
say, "All right,
I
here's
saw that.
version one," and then, "All right, let's hear these three studio musicians. Let's see how they're going to play that solo." That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was thinking when you were saying that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's, I know that about Steely Dan, and I love that about them, and it's so obviously what we can do in editorial is like just trial and error, man. Like you try one thing, and it doesn't work, and you try another, and as much as it may be hurtful to an editor's ego, I think it's always a good idea to bring in another editor's perspective. Um, um, you know, my ego gets hurt when anybody says like, "Hey, what if we bring in another editor and we just get there?" And I'm like, "Well, what? We don't need that. I can do everything." But it's true. Like, you know, the audience experience that Josh, that you're talking about. I mean, the thing is like, like we talked about, I do a lot of, you know, fix it jobs, or I'm often that guy that they bring in like fresh perspective. And for me, I can see so much that I know a great editor can't see, because not only are you dug in on all of the concepts that you've decided work or don't work, but you're hamstrung by a director and producers that you're working for in that scenario. Like no matter what, I can't do everything I want to do. I mean, with some directors, like, I work with like Wadlow and Andy and John Irwin. Those are guys who will let me try anything, but I can't get all of my ideas in, and so my brain becomes hamstrung by like, okay, this is this, like, we're not going outside of this box. And so when I get to look at somebody else's work, great editors who do really good work, who are maybe hamstrung by a director who's unable to let go of of a particular concept or a particular shot or a particular style. I can come in freely as an audience member and be like, "Whoa, I know, that doesn't
Hmm.
work, and I know how to make this better." So, I think it's a collaborative art, obviously, and those of us who are willing to put our egos aside and collaborate, I think it's always better for the project.
Yeah, there's also like well, two things. I worked with a director who had to go away for like a couple weeks with his family. We were deep in and sort of frustrated, and we came back having not looked at it. We sat down and it was like instantly, completely obvious what
Yeah.
needed to happen. So just even that, like just walking away, which, you guys are on money jobs and time is like, you can't just say, all right, take 2 weeks off. But sometimes like even a couple days just resets the button when you're dug in on something. It's just like, it's about becoming an audience to it.
Yeah.
And I forgot the other thing.
And
There were
just on
two
that,
things.
like, I'll say that when I'm assembling a project and I'm stuck and I think something sucks and I can't make it work, I'll slap it together, and we may have talked about this last time, and I'll come back to that a week later and look at it and go, that is way better than I thought it was. Because the first assembly process for me is extremely internally combative, because there are so many choices right in front of me, like 1,000 ways to put a moment together, and I get caught up in that, like, this is not best, this is not, like, I'm thinking the first assembly has to be the best assembly, and then I'll go back and watch it a week later and be like, it's actually pretty good. Like, if I just make a couple of little tweaks, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, you got to trust your gut too. You know what you're doing. But the other thing, I remember the other thing, and you seem to embody this, is like you got to be prepared to lose 100% of the battles you
Yeah.
fight. But also, I don't remember the guy we had an artist in residence who said this very more eloquently than I'm going to say it now, which is, you can't be too rigid, because if your version isn't what they want and their version isn't what you want, trying it might result in that third version that everybody wants. Like you don't know unless you try. And now that everything's digital, what in the hell is the harm? Right. That's the other
Why the
thing. It's
fuck
like,
not?
yeah,
Like,
like on
really?
film, I get it. Like you're gonna lose frames. It's an accordion. It's falling apart. But like, yeah, digital, just duplicate, and
Yeah.
then you could try. I mean, then now the downside of that is, I know editors who have 50 versions of everything and they can't commit to a decision, and
Sure.
that can be analysis paralysis. It could be as bad as anything.
Yep.
So that's you also have to be confident in your work.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be confident enough to move on and know that, like, the thing that and this is a conversation I have every time I get asked to come in on a project that's already in motion, right? Like a fix it or whatever. Everybody wants me to fix a movie in 2 weeks, and what I have to explain is, like, the most brilliant bits and pieces don't just come out like sure, it's going to get better in 2 weeks, but, like, it takes time and pass after pass after pass for you to see, oh, wait a sec, that moment that you're talking about of, like, yes, I did something and maybe it's better, but somebody else doesn't like it, and then we have a collaboration from there. And that's my favorite part of the process. My favorite part of the process is after the assembly is done, director and I are going through it together. They give me a note I don't like, and I'm arguing as I'm making that change. I'm saying, no, I don't think that's going to work, but because, like, but why not? Like, why the fuck am I not going to try something?
Mhm.
And now, if we're, like, back with Stallone, like, if if we've locked picture and we're in post-production and you have a director like that who like we're on the mix stage and he's like, come on, let's go back to the editing room, I got a bunch of ideas, like that's when I'm like, dude, come on, like we gotta, like we have a release date and we you know, and then if you have a director like that, some really bad things can happen, because then you know, I'm like, I don't know what's good or bad at that point. It's like just do it, you know, like just make it faster or make it sure. And then there's like if nobody's watching the store, things can get really bad if you just keep trying things. So there's definitely two sides to that.
Sure. Well, the whole theory of like, no, movies aren't finished, they're abandoned.
Yes.
Like could cut the thing forever, right? Like,
though I guess Stallone never abandoned the movies now, because he did like a total recut of Rocky 4 recently, I think. Yeah.
That wasn't locked.
Not
well,
Rocky 4.
how do you lock up a picture like that, really? You know, no, they removed the robot or something. Isn't that what they did?
Know.
They something. They scaled back on the poly robot or whatever. But I didn't see it. I thought it was perfect as it was. Like if you look at it as a timepiece for, what was it, 86, 7, right? Like it's
one of the better. It's one of the it's I think it's the best after 2 and before Balboa.
Oh, you don't like Clubber Lang? You're not a fan of 3?
I mean, I was in 1980 whatever.
Right.
But I don't feel like, you know, for me, Rocky 1 and Rocky Balboa are my favorite Rockies.
Mm-hmm. Well, 2 is like an extension of 1.
Yes.
Right. Like I think it has a very similar spirit as like the companion piece.
For sure.
3,
but then like Clubber Lang, it starts getting like, and then 5, forget it. Like 5 is the reason why he decided to make Balboa, because he ultimately he said I can't leave my legacy on Rocky 5.
That was the Tommy Morrison one.
Yeah.
I just watched a YouTube video of him kicking the crap out of many people.
Really?
Was he juiced or something? Is there some story about him where he was like, we don't know, we can't say?
I got a lot of stories from Sly when we were working together. I don't think he ever talked about that movie other than how horrible it is.
No, it wasn't. It was a bare knuckle brawl, right? Like that, to a guy who had diagnosed brain damage from the previous, like he, first of all, none of it totally makes sense. He comes home, his son's like 9 years older.
Right.
You could take, you know how they do that? Like, what's it, Alien Romulus? Some of those movies, they just like remove the movies they don't like. Superman Returns basically ignores Superman 3 and 4 or something. So yeah, I guess he could always go back and he could just do another one.
There was a moment after Balboa where we were going to edit together all the Rockies into one giant
the Rocky saga
experience.
Probably one of the smartest things I've ever done for my career. It gave me all the tools that I needed to be able to jump into a new career.
Getting myself into a mindset, thinking like an editor, and being around people that I can talk to on that level was really invaluable to me.
A lot of the things that I learned from that class, I still think about.
I loved the classroom. I loved the computer stations. We built a sense of community.
And it also instills a lot of confidence in you to take that and go out into the world.
After I took the class, I felt very prepared to take the next step.
I owe Manhattan Workshop the career that I have right now.
Things have been going great, and I really have the Manhattan Workshop to thank for that.
Jason and I did when The Force Awakens came out. That was, I don't even know when the hell that was. It was a long time ago now.
Yeah.
But they were showing all of them at a theater in Midtown, so you could watch in order. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it would end with The Force Awakens, like the new one.
Wow.
And the smell of that room, after, and it used to take breaks and stuff, but we couldn't sit through the whole thing. But we went for Star Wars and Empire or something.
I think we came for the ending of the prequel one, the third.
Okay, and
Did
it
you guys
already
dress up?
no, but it was
It started to get ripe.
fragrant,
Yeah.
and they were just like, imagine a room, 300 nerds for 72 hours straight. It was
anybody
rough.
dressed up?
I'm sure there were people who were
Yes, there was people
right.
sleeping. There was people dressed up. It was.
Mhm. But it was cool to then see the first, like the new one, fresh off of
Yeah.
Jedi, and everybody went absolutely batshit. I mean, so
I mean, like, so you only stayed for two?
I think we went. I left. These guys were there for longer. I wanted to see Empire. Any opportunity to see Empire on the big screen, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I saw that with the New York Philharmonic playing live accompaniment once with my daughter.
Amazing.
So I did Empire and Jedi, and I did the three, and then Force Awakens. I don't think I left.
I got there at 8 a.m, and they were at the end of Revenge.
It was tired, but you could do a Rocky marathon like that. But he has to come out with a new movie. There has to be like, another about Rocky movie. He has to de-age himself or something. And
we did a little bit of that in Balboa.
No, that wasn't all real.
It was all real. It's just there was just like a
flashbacks?
couple of scenes where we did some beauty work on his eyes. He just wasn't.
Mhm.
That's all. It wasn't de-aging.
Okay, because he could seriously you could make him look like Rocky 4 if you wanted to, and just do
I don't know,
little.
man. I saw The Irishman. I don't know about that.
My only problem with The Irishman is that it was too good. Like it was like noticeably.
It was good, but so they looked young, but they moved like old guy. It was really weird.
Yeah, it spoke like they
Very
didn't. We know the sound designer. What's his name? Garrity. Eugene Garrity. And weren't they talking about pitch controlling his voice so that he wouldn't sound old? Because they said that was a weird thing to see this young person sounding like an old man. So they were like doing all kinds of modifications to their voices so that they would sound different. But then, it was the Indiana Jones movie. He's young and he sounds old. Like they didn't do that there, and you could tell. I don't know. All this stuff is at some point there's going to be like a Thunderdome of cameras with VR backgrounds and actors just standing there and perform, or they just generate them and you get any angle you want and you can do anything, literally anything you want to do.
Yeah.
You just talk to the AI bot, not to dissuade editors from starting in the business, because I do think what you're saying about how you like the sort of spinning up to a movie and that decision, like that human, like you can try to say, do a Rocky Balboa on this scene, and AI will try to compute that, but
I'm not worried about AI for editors at the moment. I think, frankly, I'm not worried about it for writers or editors. It's just really actors I'm concerned about at the moment for AI, and I think that we're all a little over concerned about it. Right now I think AI is just going to be giving editors tools to just do cooler shit. Just better stuff and visual effects. I think it's going to hurt financially the visual effects industry. I think there will be fewer man jobs or people jobs. Sorry, I was thinking man hours. But I'm not particularly concerned. I mean, editing is there are such human nuances that I'm not saying it won't get there, but and certainly I'm sure you could ask an AI bot to put an assembly of a scene or a movie together, but I don't think there's any way we can get rid of the human nuance of emotion and I don't know, just the human assessment of moments.
I think because you're talking about like you want to just get something put together so you can just evaluate it. That's something that I think AI, and it's weird that it can't do it. Yeah, you see, like, what is it? That app GoPro bot that like just stitches your stuff together and puts music underneath, and like that is, and it's not great at it. It's good enough at it, but like something where like you essentially say, cut out slates, cut out the last 3 seconds of it. Like there's probably some algorithm to do a pretty decent assemble edit.
I would imagine. I mean, I'm guessing that Adobe is close to having something like that available in Premiere. I don't know if Avid will ever be able to, I don't know, fix their titler, but I think tools like I think companies like Adobe are really kind of diving into that kind of thing, and that stuff is great, for people who need it. I mean, I think we're very close to being able to say, take this scene and like put in a prompt of like, these two people are having an argument, or make it look like a scene from this movie or whatever, and have some kind of sort of shitty assembly of it.
If that's all you're going for, right? Like you could say like, masters to twos to close, and then back out, and it'll look like every scene will have that sort of like, blah.
Yeah.
But it's structure that you can then evaluate.
Sure. And whether that's helpful to me or not as an editor, I don't really know, because, I know a lot of editors who will have their assistants put together like selects roles, or like, where they've got like, every reading of every line, and in every angle, and then they go on to the next line and do that. Like I've tried that, and it doesn't help me because I'm not looking at every inch of footage myself. And so I don't know where all the like happy mistakes are and all the cool shit that I might use for something that has nothing to do with what it's for. And so, and that's the kind of stuff I think, it'll take AI a long time to be able to be programmed to find those like amazing little like happy finds.
No, I mean, that's the thing. How do you tell it to look for something that you have to stumble upon?
Yeah.
Right?
I was going to say that you're touching upon a really touchy subject, because when you say write this in ChatGPT, when you say write this in the style of Shakespeare or write this in the style of Mel Brooks, are the tools going to get to edit this in the style of Sean Albertson, edit this in the style of anyone else?
I mean, that's a tougher one, I think, than writing, because, editing style is a tough, I think if you're a really good editor, you don't have any particular style, like a filmmaker. Like, I edit all different styles of films, right? Like, and my style, the style of editing should be the style of the project, the style of the movie, the style that the director, is going for. And so, I sort of hope there's no like Sean Albertson style of editing.
But if you got paid like a nickel for every time someone used that software.
Oh, fuck yeah. I'm totally good at style. I'm the style man.
But that's the thing. Like, you could say, again, this is like going into my VR Thunderdome virtual studio situation. You could shoot something and then say, I wanted to put it together like a Tony Scott movie, because there's a look, right?
Yes.
And he had a thing that you could say his movies, and it churns it out with like super shallow focus and that color spectrum. And then you're like, you know what? How about Ridley? You go and do a Ridley. Like but you could call out directors and sort of their aesthetic more than an editor's. I'm trying to think of what editor, like a signature editor. I'm not even sure I know. I'm sure there is someone.
That's it. You can't. So let's say Chris. What the fuck is Christian, who cut Man on Fire? Anyway, you'll look it up. So Chris cut Man on Fire, super stylized, right? Super stylized movie that like almost created its own editorial style and genre with the hand cranked forward backward hand crank camera. But you can't look at all of Chris's work and see that style. Like that style is that movie, and it's definitely, like you said, more of a Tony Scott style than a Chris. What's his last name? Did you see?
I don't know. It's not Tellefson for sure.
No,
there's no way. But that's like while Jason's looking, like
Wagner,
Chris Wagner. Thank you.
Yeah. The editing on one of my favorite movies is The Limey, which was that was done. The shooting supported it to some degree, but they also applied that to it afterwards to really amplify the sort of nonlinear structure. How do you replicate that? You can't prompt anybody to do that. There's no way.
No.
Nor would you want to. But it doesn't. His movies maybe look and feel of a piece more because of the way they're directed and shot than the way they're edited.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, the footage will tell you, if you have a director like that, the footage sort of tells you in a way how to put it together.
Or what it's capable of withstanding stylistically. Because I was working on this movie when that came out, and the guy's like, let's do that. And I'm like, I don't think you could do that. You can't just do, like, you didn't shoot for that. You can't take standard coverage and turn it into some, and boy, did we try.
yeah, I'm sure.
Well, it's just it was such a, it was a very remarkable thing to see when it first came out. Everybody I knew wanted to try to make that happen.
Yeah.
So we got to Blumhouse, but did we get to the Chippendales and Regarding Henry and other projects?
The Chippendales murder. I'm happy to talk about the Chippendales murder. A guy. So I which actually turned out surprisingly good when I got that job. I mean, I was young in my career, but I got that job, and it was USA Network, and a TV movie, and a guy named Eric Bross was directing that thing, and I read the script, and it was like USA Network, and I was like, this is so cheesy and whatever. I just need an editing job. And it was also it happened to be the first project in my career where I decided not to be afraid anymore, not to be the editor that just assembles, like just, just put it together like by numbers and like wide shot, medium shot. Like I was like, you know what? I got something to offer, and I'm not going to be afraid to put myself out there and fail. And so I do like talking about this project because Eric is one of those directors that directs like that. Like he's just like, I'm gonna try shit and I'm gonna get crazy. And what he shot, I felt lifted the material, lifted the script way beyond a sort of cheesy USA Network TV movie of the early 1999, I think. And I just kind of went with it. I was in LA, I was at Universal cutting, and he was in Canada shooting, and I was getting footage of stuff. I was like, what the hell? What is this meant to be? Like, how is this intended to be used? He did this weird thing that I remember. It was like he reversed, I don't know, he like pushed in on it was weird. I can't even remember, it so long ago, but I was like, I'm just going to try something with it. And he loved it. And we just had this amazing, like super creative, like crazy process. And it was a lot of fun. And and I was very proud of that. I haven't seen that in, well over 20 years. But I love that project. I'm still in touch with Eric. Today we produced a short film together years ago that we were trying to make into a feature, and everybody go watch that Chippendale. And then I got contacted by a producer a few years ago. Oh wait, they ended up making the series on Hulu, I think, recently, or
Based on the movie?
well, I mean, just based on the true story.
Okay.
And it was good. It's really it's a really interesting story, and it's a true story, and it's a murder, and a lot of half naked dancing guys.
Well, yours will be the Robert Altman MASH, and the
There you
Hulu one will be the sort of trashy Jamie Farr spinoff.
Both versions of MASH are great.
It's true. Honestly, like I had a teacher. It was in fourth grade when the finale happened, but we watched it, and I remember like because that was like a big show on TV, but like she could barely function the day after the finale, and it was like I rewatched it many times since, and it's devastating. It's really.
It's an amazing. I mean, it was a great movie. It's a spectacular TV show. I mean, it was just brilliant on so many levels, and I even love Jamie Farr.
No, but I watched the show as a kid. I didn't even know there was a movie. Of course, like I'm in film school, like seeing shortcuts going like, who's this guy? And it's like, he's got all this stuff. So California Split and Nashville and Long Goodbye and this and that. And like, Jason, probably you don't remember me then. We've known each other a long time. I wore a handlebar mustache on my face for more years than I care to say because of that. Was it Trapper John? That character?
Was it Trapper or?
Oh no, it was Hawkeye.
No. Hawkeye was. It was either Trapper or. There were two of those guys.
It was the Elliot Gould character. So Elliot Gould was.
Wait, did they make a show called Trapper John MD?
Yes, they did.
Oh shit!
And I think it was supposed to be a sequel, like what he did after he got home from the war, but it was loose. It wasn't the same thing.
Yeah.
But I can't believe I can't remember who Elliot Gould played in MASH. It's ridiculous.
It was either Trapper or the first guy, because remember there were two roommates, and Trapper was the second
There was Donald Sutherland was shit.
You're on the movie. I'm on the fucking TV show.
Well, BJ Honeycutt was
BJ
Mike
Honeycutt.
Farrell. He was
the handlebar guy in the show.
But that was the blonde-haired actor.
Yes.
Right? And then
Elliot Gould.
Guys, anybody? You guys watch this show?
Yeah, I've got Alan Alda, Gary Berghoff, Mike Farrell, Jamie Farr, Harry Morgan with Sherman T. Potter.
Sure.
Black and white. Larry Linville.
Wow.
And William Christopher.
But you got to look up the movie. You got to find out who Elliot Gould played in the movie.
That's easy.
Yes. I thought he was Trapper John McIntyre. And then Sutherland was the other guy.
You got Donald Sutherland, Elliot Gould, Gary Berghoff is in it.
So what did Donald Sutherland play in MASH? The movie?
He was Trapper John.
He was Elliot. Okay, so who
Elliot Gould was Hawkeye.
Okay, and Sutherland.
No, Donald Sutherland was Hawkeye.
Donald Sutherland was Hawkeye.
Was Hawkeye, yes. I just remember that first scene where like he walks in and there's this new guy sitting there and he looks at the still and he's like talking about making their martinis and he just opens his jacket and he's like, well, there's no martini without olives. And he's just got like really, I don't know. That movie was at the right place at the right time for me. Yeah. Just like Rocky Balboa was. I'm a Philly boy, so like, I'm wrapping it up, I guess. I loved seeing it kind of come full circle. Even with Creed and stuff. Like honestly, that first Creed movie when they're riding like those dirt bikes down, like they recreate the art museum sequence, but like for present day was really you get nostalgic for that stuff.
All right, let's wrap things up. Do we want to do takeaways for part 2? Is there a takeaway?
Is there a takeaway?
Part 2? What are we even talking about?
Is there anything that you've learned in the past 30 days since the last time we recorded?
30 days.
Yes, I have learned that it gets in Atlanta after the summertime. Unlike Los Angeles, it starts to get really cold, and all the trees seem to die or something. I don't know. They lose all their leaves.
Called autumn, and yes, it has.
I've never. experience anything.
This is your first year in Atlanta? You've been in LA
No.
for the past?
I've been, yeah, no, we were in LA for 20 some odd years. We moved here 3 years ago.
Mhm.
So, but I
The
grew up in New
COVID
York,
move.
so I do understand the seasons. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the only takeaway I've had in the last 30 days.
And that sometimes when you invite people for Thanksgiving, they don't leave
They don't
That's
leave.
the truth.
right away.
All right. Well, I think we're just going to wrap things up unless we've got one last takeaway. Josh, Jason?
I think we should put a picture of your handlebar years.
Oh, geez. I don't even know if one of those exists. I do know that it exists,
Sure, we will
actually.
find
I'm
that.
sure it does. We'll find
would
that.
like
We'll
to see
embarrass
that.
me. We'll put that up there just for a laugh. But no, when the next thing comes out, let us know. We'd love to sit down and talk shop with you again.
All right.
I'm always available to you guys. Always a blast.
Thank you. Jason, what do we have coming up at the Manhattan Edit Workshop?
Well, we got plenty of classes coming up. We got a new 6 week coming in January with the artist in resident will be Matthew Barbado, who's done recently the Murders in the Building. So that should be good.
Nice.
All right. Is there going to be a holiday party? Are we going to get all of these Zooms together and all these conversations? Have a holiday?
Like a
holiday
mashup?
Zoom? Yeah, a holiday mashup.
If you want to cut it, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Apparently, Sean works for a third of his rate.
That's true. Yeah, we're going Blumhouse rates on you for the holiday video.
Because I like you guys and I want to work with you, I will do that for a third of my rate.
Nice.
All right.
All right.
I'll
send you the footage.
That's a great way to end this off. Everyone, I'm Rafi Salem. We've got Josh Apter, Jason Becky from Manhattan Edit Workshop, and once again, the great and the only we're coming off of Wicked, so now I'm thinking of the great and awesome and the powerful Sean Albertson. So,
well, you guys should definitely interview Myron, who cut.
We just did.
Oh,
no, we
nice.
just and you know what? The screener that we didn't get dropped in the email. We got an email yesterday. Right. We had to go to the theater and see it before the interview because the company was like, "Oh yeah, we don't have screeners," and we're like, "You're shitting me, right?"
I bet Myron appreciated that you had to see it in the theater.
Yes. Well, you know what? And it was good to see Big. Honestly, it really it's the way it should be seen.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty cool talk.
Nice.
So yeah, we'll keep them coming, but we'll talk to you off the next picture.
All right, gentlemen. Good to see you.